Oh, yeah. Here we are. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love each and every day and night, all over the place, 24/7 practically. Appreciate everyone on the line as we ramp it up with our 2019 college football season predictions. All right, we got 12 on the line. We'll wait for a few more to come on. And of course, if you miss anything, then you back it up and you watch the rest of the video. We've been on for 3+ hours. Eric, DeLion, boy, set me up for failure. This should be good. Mark always does his homework and picks very well. I've been very fortunate for the most part. Last year, I really liked my selection, even after only two came through for the college football playoff when I had Ohio State and Georgia, Clemson, Alabama. Of course, Clemson, Alabama made it. Georgia, Ohio State, I could make the case that both of them could have made it. At least they were right there. I can't predict what the selection committee is going to predict. But thank you so much for the vote of confidence, Eric. This is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. So let me remind everyone that we're on here blasting away at college football content all the time. We had a 7 o'clock live stream tonight, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, now a 10 o'clock live stream talking college football. So we talk college football all the time, and we hope to do it as good, if not better, than anyone out there. So please jump on board, share the videos, like, comment, subscribe, and get the videos out there as much as you possibly can. And the names that I see in the live stream right now, you guys are there for me. So I appreciate it. All right. Back in the spring, I released videos on every team in the Power Five with first my schedule ranking on that team. I reviewed the schedule. I ranked the schedule, all the schedules in the Power Five from 70 all the way up to number 1. I also reviewed all the Power 5 teams, and I cut a video basically setting you up for 2019 and made my projection. And in that projection, I stated that this isn't necessarily my final prediction, but this is kind of where I see this team right now. All right, I have those projections in front of me. And truth be known, I have no idea right this second what my predictions are going to be, because I'm going to have to review, and this is why I'm doing this as a live stream. And what I'll do after this, for those people that don't want to hang out for 2.5 hours while we sit here and talk college football and I answer your questions. And of course, the phone lines are open at 860-325-3687, 860-325-3687. That, again, so I'm going to make amendments to these projections as I go. So the one thing to keep in mind, among other things, when you check out anybody's predictions is you've got to check the math. So some people screw this up out there. So you understand if you look at NFL predictions. So I'm going to take you back to an earlier time where a buddy of mine for our high school newspaper made NFL predictions. I took the NFC, he took the AFC, and I looked over his predictions and I immediately told him that's not going to happen. And he's like, "Oh, you don't like my predictions?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm okay with some of your predictions, but that is not going to happen." And he was like, "What do you mean?" "Well, yours isn't going to happen either." And I said, "Well, most likely it's not, because you can't be perfect and get everybody's records right, but yours mathematically can't happen." So every team, every game is won and lost. So the conference records have to add up to 500. So keep that in mind anytime you check out anybody's predictions. Where do we start? Let's go back to the comments here. Let me see if I gain some mojo and some motivation here. DeAndre's on the line right here. Good to see him. Possibly putting a few bucks on this weekend's games. Deep Barad also in the live chat, and everybody else. NBA fan, appreciate you as well, and all sorts of people. Okay, here we go. Let's start with the Pac-12. So in the Pac-12, let me try to sort this out, because this is a jumbled mess right now. Let's see if I like anything different than what I had here in the preseason. So if Clemson is going to be the tiebreaker as the elite team that lifts the ACC, then this would be the worst conference in America. But otherwise, I think that the Pac-12 is slightly better than the ACC overall. I just don't see that glut of teams in the ACC like Stanford, Oregon, Washington, potentially USC. Washington State last year went 11-2 that are that good. So actually, if you take the entire conference into account, I would favor the Pac-12 at least last season over the ACC. All right, so let's first go to, I'm not changing anything here. I don't believe so. I don't believe I'm going to change anything here, but let me look over because I want my college football playoff predictions to make sense. Ooh, they may not. Oklahoma, yeah. What do I have? The Buckeyes and the Wolverines. Okay, and I've got Georgia. I've got Alabama. Who would go to the playoffs under this scenario? I believe we would have Alabama, Clemson. Everybody knows Alabama and Clemson are going to the playoffs, right? Who in the live chat thinks that anybody other than Alabama is going to make the playoffs out of the SEC, or if the SEC would miraculously miss the playoffs? We would have Clemson, Oklahoma, Alabama, and then there would be a tie between those two. Interesting. All right. Oklahoma doesn't play anyone out of conference besides UCLA. Okay. All right. Here we go. Let's look at the Pac-12. Man, I should have had this done before I started. But we do 3 straight live streams for 3 hours. So in the Pac-12, let's go to the South Division first. And we have the winner there at 6-3. So Utah is going to win the Pac-12 South. I predicted last year, despite having the most difficult schedule in the Pac-12 in conference, that Utah would emerge as the Pac-12 South Division champion, which of course they did, lost the Pac-12 championship game by a touchdown. Utah emerges out of the Pac-12 South at 9-3, 6-3 in the Pac-12. Your other contending teams would include USC at 7-5, 5-4 in the Pac-12. And again, I'm going to cut this down and I'm going to release it with graphics. And I'll take a call because that gives me more time to think. All right. Hey, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hi, this is Mark Rogers.
Absolutely it is.
Yes, sir. My name is Ken. I'm calling from Louisiana.
Hey, Ken, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Very difficult to catch you. You know, you always, you come on different times, 2 in the morning, 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, whatever, man. I can't hardly catch you. So, it popped up. I said, I better call him right away because, can't catch up with him.
Absolutely, Ken. We appreciate it. This is great. What you got for me?
Yeah. Well, I got plenty for you. You don't have enough time for me to get what I want to get you. I'm going to just throw some real brief stuff at you real quick. Well, first of all, I think Georgia, Jake Fraud, I call it. He ain't never won a big game, and LSU destroyed them last year. Oklahoma has no defense. They're not better than LSU.
Okay.
Ohio State not better than LSU. So I don't buy that ranking. Well, it's just a ranking, but anyway. But the bottom line, none of those teams, in my opinion, and across the world, none of those 2 teams are better than LSU, particularly coming to this year with a veteran quarterback and an NFL defense, a New Orleans offense with the great wide receivers, Emory, Price, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Man, I can't wait for this season to start. People that predicted us to be 7-6 wins last year.
Mm-hmm.
We won 10 games.
Yep.
You picked us 10-2 this year. I can't buy that because we're better. We're going to be better than we was last year. We 11-1 or 12-0. I think we give Alabama a run for their money this year. I don't know if we're going to win it, but my thing is 11-1 or 12-0 for LSU. No question about it.
So, Ken, my spring projection had LSU at 9-3 and 6-2 in the conference. So you're saying I'm going to be dead wrong?
Yeah, definitely
dead
wrong.
Okay.
Definitely.
So you've got to play.
We got the best secondary in America. We're not going to lose anything losing Greedy Williams and Devon White. We got Michael Divinity. We got so many stars that's coming back, and we got Kelly Von Schatzall coming back with Sean Lawrence on the other end for Holco. Man, we got so many. Man, we so deep on both sides of the football. This is the best team Ed Osborne has put together since he's been there. And I just don't see us losing. We got all of the games except for Alabama at home. Revenge game against Texas A&M. A revenge game against Florida. Auburn dead in the water. Vanderbilt, really? Georgia Southern, really? Arkansas, really? Man, please. None of those teams beating us. None of them.
You got to play Texas on the road. If you're talking national championship, not SEC, but
Texas is not good. Texas is not good either. Texas is for Georgia cared nothing about that game because they did not go to the Final Four. They was pissed off. They didn't care. Okay, and people are deceived when they think Texas is good. They're not. LSU will beat them by double figures in Austin, Texas. Let me remind you, Mr. Rogers, you're a great analyst. Let me remind you, when LSU played against top 10 non-conference game, they not only beat them, they beat them by double figures. Go back and look at it. Oregon, Miami, West Virginia, let's go on and on. When they play a non-conference top 10 team, they destroyed them. They don't just win. They destroyed them. Go check it out. You know the stats better than me.
I tend to remember games, and I remember the stats. Yes, LSU did, though, only go 5-3 in the SEC last year.
Yeah, but that was a new quarterback, Joe Burrow. He's a veteran now. And they won 10 games when y'all only picked them to win 7 or 6 games.
So you make a great point. And in every LSU video that I cut this offseason, I hope you were able to check some of them out. I made that exact point about Joe Burrow. People cut on Joe Burrow last year because, he had a decent season, but he didn't light it up. He wasn't prolific. But they need to understand the kid was stepping on campus the middle of the summer, just getting himself acclimated to campus and his teammates, terminology, playbook, all of it. Now he's got a full calendar year with spring practice, summer workouts, the whole deal.
Exactly. And Nick Brissett was good, but he ain't John Emery.
No.
He ain't even Price.
No, he's not.
We got big-time stars at the backfield now.
Well, we're projecting that they're going to be stars. They're 4 and 5 stars.
You must have didn't see the spring game. And that, because I'm gonna tell you right now, in a couple of games, Emery will be the starting running back at LSU.
Okay, I'm not discounting that. I'm just letting you know that they haven't proven anything at this level. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I know, I understand, but when you watch when they play against the Texas Longhorns in Austin, Texas, then you're gonna see.
Yeah,
Texas got too many holes, man. They lost their entire defense.
Mm-hmm.
You got Sam, I give you that. You got Calvin, but you're going against the best secondary in America. Calvin Johnson, they're going to he will be non-involved in that game, I promise you right now. And they're not going to run the ball on us. And Sam Ehlinger, he's going to be running for his life against LSU elite defense. I'm going to tell you that right now. He's going to be running for his life. They popping this guy up. This guy will not be in New York for a Heisman Trophy candidate. I'm telling you that right now. He will not be there.
Well, you're certainly going to have to show up much better than Alabama. That was a butt kicking in which you got gained like 4 or 5 to 1.
Yeah, I told you that. Yeah, I'm not telling you we're going to beat Alabama, but nobody else in the SEC going to beat us. We played Georgia and destroyed them when they was supposed to kill us last year, and we destroyed them.
Sure.
Fraud. Y'all call him big fraud. He's a fraud. He had never won a big game at Georgia.
Whoa. Hey, never won a big game. He won an SEC championship game. He also won a college football playoff game.
He lost last year. He lost to Texas. He lost to LSU, and he lost to Alabama, didn't he?
Yes, the previous season he won the SEC championship game, and he won the what did I just mention? College football playoff game. Those are big games. Those are pretty big games. Those are pretty big games. Well, Ken, you're telling me that he's never won a big game.
Well, nothing that would put him. He didn't win no national title.
Well, okay, if that's the only big game, then there's only like 2 guys that have won big games. You only have Tua Tagovailoa and you got Trevor Lawrence. They're the only two kids in college that have won big games. If that's your criteria for a big game, then that's it.
Well, LSU wasn't a big game when he came to Baton Rouge.
I didn't say it wasn't a big game. You were telling me that he's never won a big game. And I was correcting you because he's won big games.
But what I meant when I said that, he played for the national title and lost.
Yeah, his team lost. Yes.
Well, then that's the biggest game in college football, and he didn't win.
Okay.
Okay, that's my point.
Do you know Deshaun Watson lost a national championship game? Do you think he's pretty good? Deshaun Watson lost a national championship game. Is he pretty good?
He's good. He wasn't great.
Deshaun Watson wasn't great.
No, he wasn't. He ain't no Tua Valoga, and neither is he Trevor Lawrence.
Wow.
Now you telling me he's better than them two?
I'm saying that Deshaun Watson to date is better than those two. I saw Deshaun Watson against one of the best statistical defenses that we've seen in recent, since college football has developed into what it is today, put up 500 yards and 40 points against Alabama and lose that game. Okay. But then he comes back the next year and he's thrown around like a rag doll for the first quarter, and he's down 14-0 because Alabama's defensive line dominated the first half of that game. And he made play after play after play with his feet, with his arm, and led 2 fourth-quarter touchdown drives against a great Alabama defense and won the national championship. Yes, Deshaun Watson was a great, all-time great college quarterback, and look what he's doing in the NFL.
That's your opinion. I don't think he was a great quarterback. I don't. He won the three quarterbacks won the national championship and wasn't great. Like McElroy and them boys at Alabama.
Oh, you're talking about guys that game managed championships, not that carried teams on their backs and won championships.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you got your points, but I got mine too, and I'll refute any person in America what I stated to you tonight. Against all the things, you telling me? I'm telling you right now, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Georgia is not better than LSU. Right now, not better. No way.
I think they're all very comparable. I think it's impossible for us to sit here and say who's better. So who you said? Yeah. Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma, Ohio State. Wow, those teams are all extremely close. If you were going to have me rank them right this second, I would say Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, LSU 3, Oklahoma 4. But they're all extremely close.
Yeah, but I would eliminate Oklahoma because, as well as I know, the Big 12 plays no defense, period. And if Oklahoma played against LSU, say Friday or Saturday this weekend, LSU would destroy Oklahoma.
I don't know that they would destroy them.
You saying they wouldn't beat them?
I didn't say that they wouldn't beat them. Destroy. So you understand in the 2017 college football playoff game at the Rose Bowl that Oklahoma had a pretty similar team as what they do now in regards to offensive explosiveness, but defensive liabilities. They took on a Georgia team that's very close to what LSU has, probably better because they came within seconds of winning the national championship. They went to overtime in the national championship game, and that Georgia team barely beat Oklahoma. They barely beat them. They had to go to overtime to beat them. So, no, I do not think LSU would go out and beat Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns.
That was against Georgia. They didn't play LSU.
And that Georgia team was better than LSU's team last year.
Let me remind you that LSU destroyed Georgia last year.
You're talking about 2 teams that played last year, and you're talking about 1 game.
But if Georgia or Oklahoma or Ohio State played LSU Saturday night, this weekend I'm talking about, LSU would beat all whatever 3 teams you put in there.
Ken,
LSU would beat them.
Ken, you understand that I'm dealing with logic and results on the field. You're just making statements. So those statements we can't deny that. I could tell you. So Ken, I could tell you. You know what I'm going to tell you? Illinois could beat anybody in the country that if they played this Saturday night. I'm taking Illinois to beat anybody in the country. I don't care what you say. Illinois is going to beat anybody in the country. You can say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean it would happen. I'm telling you that LSU is a top 5 to 10 team in the country. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, Mr. Rogers, is what I told you, I stated facts. I was giving my opinion. I stated facts what LSU did, and you giving your opinion.
No. The person coming with the facts and the logic is sitting right here, and this is what it is, Ken. To follow my logic again, you're telling me that LSU would destroy Oklahoma. Okay, what I am telling you.
If they play Saturday night, LSU would destroy them.
And that's complete we know that's complete speculation about anybody beating anybody this Saturday night. What the point I'm trying to make, Ken, just follow my logic right here.
All right, I'm listening.
Georgia from the same conference in the SEC, very similar team to what LSU had last year, but Georgia, that 2017 Georgia team, you can't deny was better than the LSU team that you had that lost 3 games last year. That Georgia team came within a whisker of winning a national championship. LSU didn't come anywhere close to winning a national championship last year. And that Georgia team barely beat Oklahoma in overtime in a college football playoff game. So for you to say that LSU would wipe the floor with Oklahoma, you don't have any basis in saying that.
No, I don't. But I have no basis. But I'm looking at the team. What I'm saying that because I looked at the Oklahoma team this year against LSU team this year. No way.
All right, Ken. I appreciate the call. I appreciate you coming on here. Thanks so much for listening.
When we beat Texas, I'm calling you again. When we beat Texas, and you're gonna have to eat crow now.
What am I eating crow about? Did I say that Texas was going to beat LSU? No, I'm simply telling you that your 3-loss LSU team last year wasn't as good as the Georgia team that almost won the national championship the year before. That's the only thing I've told you.
Yeah, but you didn't pick LSU. Nobody in America picked LSU to win no games last year. They won 10 games.
You're right. I picked LSU to go 0-12 last year. Come on, Ken. You can argue with me, but at least hey, Ken. You can argue with me. I love the debate. I love the debate, Ken. You can argue with me, but at least get my argument straight. Okay.
You have some good logic. You have the logic.
I do my best.
Thank you.
I think LSU's tremendous. I think you're tremendous and one of the top 5 to 10 teams in America. So I'm going to have a whole lot of fun watching LSU this year. Enjoy the season, man.
Oh, I'll certainly go on it. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Wright, for taking my call.
Thank you, Ken. All right. We're off to a bang-up start here. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
What's up, boy? DeAndre,
hey, how are you?
Good. Who you got this? I don't know if you're betting this year, but who you got in the first game? That's in Miami and.
Oh, DeAndre, I'm gonna unveil that here sometime, probably Friday night. I'll tell you which way I'm leaning. I'm leaning toward Florida winning by about a touchdown. What's the spread at right now?
7.5.
7.5. I don't like that. I'm starting to lean a little heavier toward Florida. I think Jaron Williams is a fine quarterback and will be a good quarterback, but in his first start, and Manny Diaz in his first game, and that Florida offense was much improved last year. Still not great, not elite, but much better. I'm thinking this might be like a 24-16 kind of Florida win.
Yeah.
DeAndre, you with us?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know me and you talked about this last year. This is the last time I'm going to do this. I did a teaser on the bet.
Okay.
I teased it down. I took Miami, Florida at 40. And Florida and Miami go over 40. And then I got Florida at a half a point. Only reason why I did that, because I took Hawaii and Arizona to go over 74. But I had like how high it was. So I teased it down to 66 points. And teased the score of the game from 11 points down to -4. So I took a 7-point teaser because I thought all the scores were kind of high. So that's what I did this year. But this is the last year I'm doing it. This is the last time I'm doing the teaser. Because of what we talked about last year.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds like you got a game plan.
No, I'm saying, yes. I was off and on your last conversation with that gentleman. He said Deshaun Watson was an all-time great quarterback.
Yeah, he was trying to tell me that. Well, first he was saying that Jake Fromm has never won a big game, and I was simply pointing out to him that he has won big games, and then he's given me all the games that Jake Fromm lost, and I said I'm not debating that he lost games, but I'm telling you that that winning a college football playoff game and winning an SEC championship game and other games are big games. And then he said, well, you never won a national championships. And so then I said, well, if that's your criteria of that's the only big game that's ever played, then okay, then very few guys do that. And then I forget how we got to Deshaun Watson, but I was basically stating how you can lose a national championship game and still be an outstanding player, and how Deshaun Watson performed against those two Alabama teams was just some of the greatest quarterback play I've ever seen.
Yeah, because that first game, I don't know if people remember this or not, but he didn't have Mike Williams.
That's right.
He didn't have Winthrop.
Got hurt in game one.
Played for a little while. Yeah. But I'm interested to see your picks because I know next week is a bigger week. But I'm telling somebody on Pigskin Street Channel, one thing that you taught me last year is to stay away from the huge spread. That killed me last year.
Oh, absolutely.
I stayed in Minnesota, but then one of the biggest that game that game killed me. I think Ohio State needed to win by 24, and they struggled with Minnesota the whole game until the end, and they pulled away. I think they won by 20.
Yeah. So DeAndre, this is my motto when it comes to big point spreads. If it goes over 20 points, number one, I've looked at my record the last few years, and my record is so much worse on point spreads over 20 points because here's the deal. If you got an Ohio State Rutgers kind of game and the point spread's, 42 points, you don't know who's going to be in the game. You don't have any idea who's going to be playing in the fourth quarter. You don't know how hard they're going to be playing. And you don't know how the coach is going to call the game, if he's going to keep the gas pedal on or if he's just going to run it out, let them score a touchdown or two. Big deal. So you don't know how the game's going to be called, who's going to be playing, and how hard they're going to be playing at that point because it's garbage football.
Yeah, like Clemson Georgia Tech. There's a 36-point spread. There's no way I'm touching that after last year. There's no way. And then Clemson got Texas A&M the next week. Clemson's not going to play. If they get up on Georgia Tech, they probably call the dogs off, and they probably win by 28. If anything, I'm going to take the spread total up. I mean, I'll take positive 36.
Yeah, if somebody held a gun to my head, I would take the points. But I'm staying away from that game as well because Clemson could win this game easily, 45-3 or 40, whatever, 48-10, because they're that much better. And Georgia Tech just trying to transition their personnel to that offense, it could be really scary for them.
Right. Last thing, Mark. Sometimes I do a little. I don't do as much as you and Cam and some of the other great guys that does television. I've been doing little replies on YouTube. I noticed and this is why I have a problem with people talking bad about the ACC. And it's not you. I ain't gonna mention the guy's name because he's on another channel. But he said, well, before Clemson started on this run, Florida State and Miami used to run the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
And I said,
well,
Miami
no.
not even won the ACC. Yeah, they only won the Coastal one time. If they said Florida State and Virginia Tech, I can go along with that. But not Florida State and Virginia Tech. Florida State and Miami. And that's one of my biggest issues about the ACC. About people when they talk bad about the ACC because they don't know about the ACC tradition. They don't know enough about Clemson in the 80s. And I brought this up plenty of times to you. Like, Clemson was really good in the 80s. I know they had, like, the years they was on probation, I think they were like 6-5 3 times in a row. But those other years, they were pretty good. And I was trying to tell that guy that, and I said, you know, like 1991, Georgia Tech won the national championship. They beat Clemson by 2, and Clemson also lost to the Herman brothers at Virginia. But they destroyed Illinois, who was the only team to beat Colorado that year. I think Colorado might have had a tie with somebody. I don't remember who, but they destroyed Illinois. Clemson was one of the best teams in the country that year.
Yep.
And I was trying to explain to the guy, Clemson in the 80s beat Nebraska, beat Penn State, beat Oklahoma, they beat Florida State, they split with Florida State. I mean, hell, it won't for the Barooza, they would have went 2-0 against Florida State. But by about not treating Danny Ford. So I was trying to explain to him, I'm like, you don't look at the full picture when we talk about Clemson football because you don't know about it. I'm not going to talk bad about, let me think of some school, like Michigan State and Syracuse. If you go back in history, they have really good football programs. I mean, I know Michigan State's been good lately also, like off and on, but they have good football programs. You can't say that negative about the team.
Sure.
You know, like, I don't know anything about Michigan State history. I know they won championships in the 60s. But Michigan State and Syracuse have had really good football programs. But now they're on the down slope. The same thing with Clemson. Until you get the right coaches in there, maybe Dino Babers is the right coach. And we all know about the migration of players back down south, population down south. So a lot of people are not going to the northern schools. So it's hard for them to draft people, to recruit people back up north. So that's what you're seeing. But that's why I say I try to go to the ACC as much as possible because a lot of these people, they may not be your age or my age, and they don't know the history of the ACC. But it's like, please get your data right if you're going to say something bad about it, when you can look back at it like, hey, Clemson was really good in the 80s. And people actually played full games. They won't take a time off. Like, hey, we're going to play in the bowl game. No matter what your status was, we were playing the bowl game. And now people take bowl games, I ain't playing. People didn't do that back then.
Sure.
You had everybody playing. So, but I can't wait to hear your picks. I think Florida, I hate to say it because it's the SEC team, but I think Florida's going to win. I mean, I keep hearing Cam and other people, Zoe, saying that Florida's offensive line is weak, but so is Miami. I mean, everybody got a lot of talent, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do to each other. But one thing that made me pick Florida, the guy said turnovers could be big in this game right here, and you can return a lot of kicks, you can return a lot of points off of turnovers. So that's what I'm looking at, and I think there's going to be a fine game between both of the teams. But I like Florida, and I hope they get over 40. How you like Arizona and Hawaii? Do you see the same thing over 60?
Oh, my goodness. I haven't even looked into that, DeAndre. I wouldn't even want to say.
Yeah.
What's the point spread on that game?
74. Arizona is a -11.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I didn't know they both have good quarterbacks coming back.
Yep.
And neither one of them play very good defense. So I figured that's going to be a hell of a game as far as points.
All right, DeAndre.
All right, Mark.
I appreciate the call, man. You have a great night. Okay, we'll
You
talk
too.
to you soon. Okay, folks. Timeout. Please don't call. Just give me 1 minute. Don't call. Don't want you to waste your call. People were calling in. Somebody's calling right now. Hang on just a second. Just give me a second. I've been sitting here for 4 hours. Just give me a second. And no, I'm not going to the bathroom. Just give me a second. Let me reset. I will be back in 30 seconds. So what I have here, in addition to some audio equipment for my trip to Orlando this weekend, that will go along with my new camera for the remote and audio equipment. This stuff is not cheap. Jesse Sullivan, thank you so much for the contribution, and it's not because it's a large number, but I do thank you. Anybody who contributes 50 cents or a buck, whatever it is. Just believe me, we are blowing this thing out big, trying to do our best to build this channel. So I got audio equipment. No, I'm not going to open the box, but this was just delivered today. So this deal with holding the phone against the mic, it's settled. We're good. I'm going to be able to, once I hook this up and learn how to use it, then we're going to have quality phone calls and you'll be able to hear everything well. And I'm not going to have to sit here and break my back with the phone over the microphone. Cheryl, thank you for laughing out loud. All right. The other thing, and yes, I will take calls. So anybody calling in, I'll take your call in just a second. Hang on. This is how you can support the channel. Of course, with likes, comments, subscribing to the channel, sharing the videos. In the super chat as well. Jesse Sullivan, thank you so much again for the contribution. And whatever that is, it will be put to good use and eventually paying my salary, because this is all I'm going to be doing. So if you get the vision, that's what it is. And then you talk about content. I'll be doing these things constantly. All right. So the other thing to keep in mind, here are your other contribution opportunities. Would be to, been talking for 4 hours, would be to, plus all day at work, to be grabbing the link, the Amazon link in the description section below. Do your Amazon shopping using that link. I got to think, with all the people watching us, we're close to 13,000 subscribers, that people use Amazon. So please use that link. If you love to bet on football and you want to open an account, please do so at betnow.eu. We've got the link again below. Grab the link next to the hashtag Sam Strong, and you get an additional 50% added to your account. So if you start your account with, let's say, $100, you get, thank you, Bay 2 Perry. I've got to do a shout out here. This is how we used to do it. I haven't done one of these for a while. Bay 2 Perry. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And I got to watch doing that now with a big microphone here with the crane. Bay 2 Perry, appreciate you subscribing. Anybody else, please let me know who you root for, how long you've been watching, new subscribers. Thank you so much. Okay. So you got the super chat. You've got the Amazon link. Grab the link down there if you do the shopping right there. Also, I'll get your phone call in just a second. Hang on. Also, yes, betnow.eu. It's to a worthy cause, in addition to myself, but a very worthy cause where most of it goes. Hashtag Sam Strong. Use the promo code MRTVCFB. And also our Voice of College Football community. The link, I know this is a lot to spit out and a lot to take in, but please bear with me. The link down below, Voice of College Football community. And what you get there is my weekly prediction. And based on all of your responses, what I'm wanting to do there, I've done it about 7 or 8 times, is do an exclusive live stream where I bring you guys on to talk with me directly. So that would be great. All right, I'll take this phone call and then I'm going to tell you what we'll do with the predictions. Okay. Hey, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Yo, Mark. Farad, how's it going?
I'm sure you just couldn't contain yourself.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That last LSU caller, man, he got me on like.
Oh, I bet. I saw the caps.
I don't know.
All caps.
Like raging. I mean, it's one thing to be biased, right? And I completely understand. I myself am a diehard like Texas fan. I believe you're also an OSU fan, Ohio State fan. So, but
is that so?
You have
really?
to be somewhat. I mean, I don't know. I know you try to be like very unbiased in your shows and your reporting, and that's probably why you have such a big following. But what I want to say is that like
big, it needs to get bigger, Deeper Rot. Keep going. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But I am absolutely furious at that LSU fan. Not because he's an LSU fan, right, or that he's an SEC fan, or any of that, fluff that we tend to hear from people who support teams in that conference. But I mean, come on, man! Like, you genuinely believe that, like, all these other teams, Oklahoma, Texas, Ohio State, they just don't have any shot against LSU. Like, LSU is just that good. And I got to completely disagree with him. Not because it's LSU. It's just that, there's this perception out there that a lot of college football fans feel, especially guys who are not as closely follow the game or closely attached to the game, that think that probably half of the SEC teams can just bully everyone else in other conferences. And that's just not true. Now, even if you take the excuse that they came up with, right, like Texas wasn't motivated against Georgia, Texas is not, Georgia wasn't motivated against Texas, they have nothing to lose in that game because they weren't going as a playoff. I think that's complete rubbish. Not because, I guess they may have not had the same inclination. It's just that, you can't expect teams like Texas, Oklahoma, Ohio State to just not be in the conversation. I'll also add in Michigan. Like, as much as I've shitted on Michigan, I still think they're a good team. I just don't know if they're over the Ohio State hump this year. So, what I wanted to kind of feed into here is that I wanted to give you a preview of what I genuinely think is going to happen with Texas LSU coming up, because it's coming up in a very short time. I think that Texas has the better QB advantage. And I'm not saying this because I'm a biased fan. I just want you to take in my objective opinion, and then we can filter it down. I think Texas has a genuine QB advantage, more physical QB, more proven in clutch situations. I think that Texas has a wide receiver talent edge with, Colin Johnson projected as a first-round wide receiver, and Devin Duvernay also, which is the receiver who has the highest 40 in the Big 12 as well, fastest 40. And he's also projected in either the first or the second round of the draft this year. Could be a little bit less if he doesn't perform that well, but he's still one of the top 10 wide receivers, in my opinion, in the country. Maybe not top 5, but top 10 for sure. Texas has a much better line than LSU, and that's just been proven based on the amount of points they've scored and the amount of sacks that has been significantly fewer on Sam Ehlinger versus Joe Burrow over the course of last year. Now, I know they play in different conferences and they have different teams, but I just gotta just tell you, man, like, Texas is offensively more talented than LSU. Even the running backs, our running backs are also very well experienced with, Keontae Ingram having a solid freshman year, Daniel Young, the junior. So I wouldn't, just expect, just because LSU has that SEC brand, to just come in there and say, oh, LSU is going to destroy Texas and Austin. I mean, also, one final point I got to make. I know I've been kind of rambling on because of my frustration against this LSU guy, but we are also 8-1-1 versus LSU and Austin. And I know that might sound outdated because some of those games are old, but Texas does play very well in Austin, Texas. That's just, home field for us. Defense, we're not as good, but the secondary is still pretty strong. So just want to give you my preview on that because I was very mad at that LSU fan. I think it could be a close game, but I think that there's a reason why Vegas has a 1-point edge to Texas.
Thanks, Deeper Rot. Appreciate the call. I was going to keep that call going by letting Deeparat know what Reasonable Gump has added here, but I just didn't want to take it on. Reasonable Gump telling us that it's a fact that Georgia didn't care. I think that's a discredit to Georgia. I don't think that's a pass or a disclaimer. I think that's a discredit to them. Be men, show up, play a contest that's being watched by the nation. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, who's on the line.
That's me, Chris Harris.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. I appreciate the phone call. You had some nice comments in the live stream tonight. I am going to guess that some people are going to have difficulty hearing you. I'll let them mention that and give us some feedback in the live chat. But what's on your mind?
I just had a few questions for you regarding Justin Fields this year.
Okay.
So I was going back looking at the 2014 stats by J.T. Barrett, and he accounted for like 46 TDs that year, 11 rushing, and 34 passing, I think. You think he'll have a year like that, or you think he'll do something like it?
All right, let's see. 12 games played plus the playoffs or playoffs. Did I say playoffs? Postseason play. Justin Fields. Let's see. Let me guess his stats. Let's go. Haskins threw 50 touchdowns last year. I got to think that Justin Fields is going to throw 33 touchdowns, run for 11. I think I'm right there with you. Where are you? 47, you said? Was that your guess? Or that was Barrett's numbers?
Yeah, and I also had a question. You think J.K. and Fields will be able to go for 1,000 each on the ground?
Well, that depends on how good the defense is to a certain extent and what type of games they're playing in. If they're playing in the type of shootouts that they had to play in last year, no. But if they're controlling games 42-14 in the fourth quarter, then you're going to see more Ohio State running the football, of course, salting away big leads, which I think they're a bunch more prepared and better prepared on defense to do that this year. I think the schedule's very difficult inside the Big Ten, though. Very difficult inside the Big Ten, but I think Ohio State's going to be a pretty dominant team this year.
Yeah, I do too. I think people are putting way too much emphasis on Urban retiring. I have a lot of faith in Ryan Day, and a lot of people have a lot of faith in him as well. I think he's going to be phenomenal.
All right, Chris. Very good. We shall see. It's going to be very interesting to see Justin Fields with a team with the capabilities that they have surrounding him. People made too much out of the spring game, I believe. The kid's extremely talented, and he is matched up with one of the best play callers / quarterback developers in Ryan Day. And so I think it's going to be a great match for Justin Fields to develop his skills.
Yep. My last question was, are you taking Auburn or Oregon?
So I'll make my predictions right before the games. I don't know what to tell you right now. I've not made a prediction on any game. I typically do that right before the games on Thursday or Friday. Last year was as late as Saturday morning at like 11:45 before the noon kickoff. So I would lean toward Auburn, but certainly there has to be some consideration to a true freshman making his first start against a pretty talented Oregon defense, although it's a bit thin, and of course Justin Herbert on the other side.
Yep. Well, that's all I had tonight, and thank you for taking my call.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and my big intent tonight was, of course, to unveil my predictions. I think it's going to be a bit of a mess if I try to do that. So what I've got here is just, lists of teams and conferences and their records and their non-conference and conference records. And I don't think I'm going to do a very good job at that. So maybe we'll just continue with the call-in show for a few more minutes, and I will release a video in the next day that will have all my predictions. And I'll change the title of this this fine video. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. Reasonable guy.
There he is.
How you doing?
I'm doing just fine. I still have your comment on the screen.
Yeah. I'm not going to take long. I just wanted to call and just kind of verify what I meant. I wasn't saying that was a knock, that was like
an excuse or that Texas fans should feel any, or like they shouldn't feel credit for. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a knock on Georgia. It's ridiculous that they can't even try to show up for a big bowl game like that. But I'm just saying the whole idea that people try to spin, oh, that's just something Georgia fans say or not. I mean, no, it's not. The players and the coaches all admitted that they really didn't care about that.
But Reasonable Gump, don't you think that's an excuse? What's that telling us? That's telling us that we're better than them. We just didn't feel like playing and showing up, but we're really better than them. So forget the score of the game. We just didn't feel like showing up. That's what it's telling us. Anytime a team says that, a particular player or player says we didn't care about this game, they're basically telling you that's our excuse for losing.
Yeah, I'm not. Okay, so you're saying that maybe the Georgia players or something were trying to use that as an excuse, and they probably were, and it's ridiculous and it's unacceptable. I mean, I watched Alabama do it twice in the Sugar Bowl.
It might be true. It might be true. I'm not saying it's not true. There are different motivations for different teams in bowl games in particular, but you're right. Alabama was a better team than Oklahoma in 2013 when they showed up at the Sugar Bowl, and Alabama lost that game. Oklahoma, to its credit, won the game. I still believe Alabama was a better team. I think the track records of the two teams and the results of the season would bear that out. That Alabama, obviously they came a kick 6 away from being in the SEC championship game, which they would have won easily and been in the college football playoff or the BCS championship game that year, versus an Oklahoma team that barely. They had some crazy shootout with Oklahoma State to just get to that game.
And then this particular time, you're talking about a Georgia team that, to its discredit, got blown out by LSU, but it played Alabama relatively evenly.
Oh, absolutely.
When you take all four quarters into consideration, but then you're talking about a Texas team that lost to Maryland at home.
I'm just saying that it may be the case that they weren't motivated, but I just don't want to hear about it. They need to class up and don't use that as an excuse. Say we got beat by a better team. Texas was the better team that night. They deserved to win. They beat us.
Yeah, they do. And I'm not. And I've never said anything to the a different tone than that. I'm just saying that you usually just have these kind of conspiracy theories. Like no one from Alabama ever came out and said this is why we lost or anything. Well, in this particular case, I'm just pointing it out because it's kind of unique. The Georgia players and the coaching staff actually did admit to it. So you don't really see that very often. So that's all. That's the only reason I was pointing that out. It's just because it's kind of a different case. But I do agree with you. I think it's. I don't really have any time for it. And if a coaching staff or their players can't get motivated for the Sugar Bowl of all games, then that's another problem in of itself.
I'm not going to do it, but. I'm not going to do it, but I would be interested to go back and watch that game and see if there was any somewhat obvious, noticeable ways in which Georgia players did not seem to be giving full effort.
I kind of got the vibe watching the game myself. I think I even called in and said it, but yeah, you can watch it again, and if you actually try to look for it, I think you'll kind of notice that they just seem to be playing with the same kind of vigor that they did against Alabama. I mean, they weren't really playing with that kind of toughness. They're just kind of missing tackles or missing assignments and stuff, and just kind of lazily trying to run back to where they were supposed to be. It's just all those little things that kind of add up.
Absolutely.
Anyway, yeah. And one more thing, and then I'm going to go. I actually wanted to call in, or not call in. I wanted to ask a question when you were with Cam earlier today, but I was out with my wife. But last week he said something really strange, and because I rewatched the video like yesterday. He said that Miami beats Florida every time they play them, and I thought that was a really strange comment coming from Cam, who's such a well-spoken, by the books kind of guy.
Yeah, it wasn't accurate.
Miami has a 3-game win total over Florida. I mean, that's not every time you play them. I think it's 26-23.
Well, what he's referring to is that the Hurricanes have dominated the series in the last 40 years. So Florida had an enormous advantage in the series, but once Miami rose to prominence, they started to just lay waste to Florida. But they did lose in 2008, and they've lost a couple other times. So his statement's not fully accurate to the nth degree, but he meant that they win almost all the time against Florida in the last, 30, 35 years.
Yeah, I guess I just don't see the point in comments like that, because it's kind of like saying, well, then wait, do the other 35 years don't matter or something? So do all the games before that don't matter? So I mean, it's kind of like discrediting that Michigan still has a sizable lead over Ohio State, as hard as that is to believe.
Yeah.
Given recent years, I mean, Ohio State owns them in the 21st century, but it's still got a ways to go before you overtake them completely.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I just thought that was a very strange comment. It kind of sounded like a troll comment, kind of, but you don't really hear those from Cam very often. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But anyway,
all right, sir.
It, man. I'm gonna let you go. I know you were trying to do some predictions. So,
yeah, we may not get to those. I'm going to get those out very soon. I don't know that we'll get to them tonight. All right, Reasonable Gump. I appreciate it.
All right, man.
Have a good night. Okay. As I was starting to explain, my spring projections look something like this, which you can't really make much out of that, and I can't either. So let me gather myself over the next day, get my predictions together, and unveil those in a video. And I will change the title to this fine video to just a call-in show. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's Colin here. Colin from Florida. I've got a couple of questions for you. I'll keep it quick.
Okay.
But you're coming down to the game this weekend for Miami and Florida. So I was trying to see, a couple of questions I had. Where are you going to be at in Orlando area? Because I was like, I'm going to be out in the Disney area.
Absolutely. So I appreciate you asking. That's very nice of you to ask. So I'm still trying to put that together. So our guy, Hurricane Zoe, Alonso Oliver, is going to be over at Duffy's. I asked on my channel a few nights ago, and I put it actually in the community section. I asked for people to give me recommendations because I would like to try to get to as many places. I'd like to get to like the stadium parking lot during the afternoon to catch people tailgating if I'm able to. I don't know what the restrictions are in terms of parking. Then I'd like to hit as many spots which obviously I need to watch the game though. And so I can't be skipping all over the place. And I want to set up somewhere where I can do live streams at halftime and after the game and so forth. So any recommendations that you have, please send them to any of the videos, like write them to where they can be saved, not in the live chat here, but somewhere where I'll see it. And because I'd like to get to as many places as possible.
From the stadium, if you want to go to like the Amway down there, I know there's going to be a lot of very large like tailgate parties, and there's going to be a big screen TV, which is walking distance from the stadium itself.
So you've inspired me to either tomorrow at some point or the next day. I'm just going to strike up a live stream and I'm going to say, people, where are you going to be? Tell me. And I'm just going to sit here with a pen and paper and I'm just going to write it down. Is what I'll do.
No. I mean, I don't think you're in this particular area, especially with this game. I mean, I don't think there's going to be very few spots within the 2 miles of that stadium that you're going to have an issue finding.
Okay.
TVs, yeah.
Because I would love to meet as many of you as possible. So my voyage down there is number one. When this was a week 1 game, people were saying you should go down. And I'm like, no, I track all the games. I'm not going to miss like 8 other football games but once they moved it to week 0, I thought, okay, this is a perfect setup for me. So I'm also thinking of my channel, as you can imagine, that I'm trying to build this out as big as possible. So I've loaded up on equipment. It obviously takes money to fly down there and fly my son down there and stay and all that sort of thing. So it's a sizable investment. So I'm doing this for my channel, but I also want to meet as many of you as possible. That would be great.
Well, no, so we're going with a group of about 70 or 75 or 80 people ish, and we're gonna have a big group. So we would love to see you there, and I watch all of your shows. I mean, I don't agree with all the people that are on the shows, 'cause obviously, like as a fan, you're biased, but I mean, I love the content you put out. Want to support it. I've used your Amazon link for anything I buy on Amazon.
I appreciate that.
You putting the content out. Yeah, that's why I appreciate that. Seriously.
And I believe me, I hate mentioning that like once or twice a live stream that I've got an Amazon link down there, but that's the only way to do it. So once again, where are you guys going to be?
So we're going to be tailgating in the south side parking lot of the stadium itself, and we'll have about 75 to 80 people. We're going to have a few different trucks. We'll have some TVs out there. If you, I'll send you a message on YouTube after this if you want me to. But we'll make sure if you want to stop by and see the group of people, if you want to do a live stream, it'll be fun. But it'd be something you can do while you're there, and I can give you an idea of where there's going to be a group of people in the area because we're all from the Orlando,
very cool
Central Florida area.
That's awesome.
So. But the only question I had for you, and like I said, I appreciate all your content, and I listen to you every day. I watch all of your live streams. I'm a Florida fan, so go ahead and just full disclosure there. But I watch all your Miami streams, your Ohio State streams, your Florida State streams. I watch it all week. But the only thing I had, which I want to ask you a question about, and I know you've been talking with Cam a lot, Miami stream you have, but as far as predictions this weekend, it can go either way. I mean, I'm a diehard Florida fan my whole life, and I hope we win. And I do feel like we do have a little bit of an advantage. It would be a close game to me. But the only thing I question about, and I listen to all your streams with the Miami streams, and I wonder I feel like he's condescending on Florida's schedule and who we schedule on our yearly schedule. We have Florida State every year, obviously. And I think that they think we're, as Florida, we're ducking Miami every year. But my only thing with that is if we played a Florida State and Miami every year and we're playing an SEC schedule, to me, I feel like it would not be fair to play a Florida State and Miami and an SEC schedule every year. I feel like that's not the same as Miami playing a Florida every year and then playing, the ACC Coastal, which is maybe not so much of a great conference compared to what we're playing in the SEC. So, I don't think they understand that, and they think that we're trying to duck scheduling them every year. And I want to know, what your thoughts on that are.
Oh, I've got a lot of thoughts. Here they come. So the first thing is that the SEC Eastern Division took a bit of a dip around 2012, 13, 14 in that range. But let me explain to a lot of people out there that was relative to what it was before, and that's relative to what it's expected to be in the SEC. Even at its worst, that was not a bad division compared to that division in the ACC, compared to the Big Ten West, compared to. It was still a decent division at its worst. So the knocks against the SEC East were because it was matched up against the SEC West. You line that division up at its worst against the rest of the country, and it's still the second or third best division in the country. But now Kentucky's jumped. Not that they're going to remain there, but they've at least stabilized to where I think that's a 7-5, 8-4 type program. Missouri's good. Of course, Florida's back to a certain extent, and of course, Georgia's now dominant. So to compare the ACC Coastal and the SEC Eastern Division is a complete joke. There's no comparison between the two. You take how many teams would have won the ACC Coastal last year out of the SEC East? I guarantee, obviously, Georgia, Florida, and Kentucky would have.
Yeah, I know,
for sure.
It's not even comparing it that way. It's not trying to be condescending. I'm just saying, I just don't think with the schedule that you're playing, why would we play, Miami, which is a rivalry, Florida State, which is a rivalry, and we get one more out of conference game, and then we have to still play the SEC conference schedule, which we have to play LSU every year, and then we have to rotate out, every few years. I mean, this year we get Auburn, but I mean, we could play either Mississippi State or Alabama or like any other team. So I mean, like I feel like if you get two of those teams that could be bitter rivals, mix in with the schedule that we already have, like how can you put that as a downer on us wanting to duck? We're not ducking Miami. It's just we have to have a chance. Like we want to try to compete for a chance to go to a championship too. I mean, but if we're playing so many over the top games, I mean, I don't know.
Okay, so what you're doing is living in the real world, and what you're basically saying is we play in the toughest conference in America, therefore our non-conference has to be reasonable. And we play Florida State, and you can't control how good Florida State is. So Florida State might be a top 10 team in the nation like they were in 2016, or they might be a 5-win team like they were last year, or they might be the national champions like they were in 2013. So they've been all over the map. So you can't control that, and you have to play that game. People demand that game. But we expect Florida State to be one of the 10 or 15 best teams / programs in the country. So you're basing it on just reality and what's reasonable. I'm going to base it to a certain extent slightly different, to just say no team in the SEC, no team practically in America is going to take on 3 difficult non-conference games out of 4. Stanford's doing it this year, and they're crazy. They're playing Notre Dame, Northwestern, and UCF. But generally, 99% of the time, nobody's going to take on 3 difficult non-conference games. And as soon as you schedule Miami, because you also play Florida State, you're basically, for those people that say Florida should always play Miami, I understand that thought process because it's a rivalry. They're in the state. They should play. But if you do that, then that means your fan base is never going to be subjected or be galvanized by having the program go out and play some of the teams that you've played out of conference, like Michigan and like some other teams that you would never play that game because you would always be playing Miami and Florida State every year. Miami and Florida State, Miami and Florida State. You would never play anybody else because there's no way you're going to go schedule somebody. You're not going to go schedule Oklahoma and you're playing Miami and Florida State. So if you're committed to playing Miami every year like you are playing Florida State, you're never going to see another Power 5 team in the nation. So you can't do that.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, and I get and I understand like people think that we have we want to schedule. Oh, I get, especially from most fans, we want to schedule cupcakes. But at the same time, we do play a Power 5, and usually, I mean, it's very rare that Florida State is having an off year. I mean, last year was a rare occurrence, and they beat us the last 5 out of 7 years. I mean, it's not like we're going out there scheduling a really terrible out of conference team. We played them every single year. So I mean, I get what people are saying, and I get Miami fans saying that we're trying to duck them because yes, perennially, yes, they have beat us, but I mean, you can't play both of the top teams in Florida every year and expect us to. We have one other out of conference game, so I mean, at that point, you got to try to play for a chance to go into a playoff. I mean, we haven't made a playoff since the playoffs were started. So, I mean,
sure.
You know what I mean? So
we get your point.
And I want to play the best teams. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, I get it. So I just wanted to say that because I know that you're very good and you're very impartial, and I listen to all your product, all of your live broadcasts and stuff. So I just want to say, it's not that I don't think Florida's ducking them, and I don't think we want to duck them. It's just if we played them and Florida State every year, it just wouldn't make sense. It really wouldn't. Just doesn't make sense.
I appreciate the call, man. Good points.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, and I look forward. I hope I'll see you guys this weekend. It'll be nice. So.
Yeah, hopefully. I will try to keep sending out the videos as much as I can when I'm down there. You know how the Wi-Fi works. It might be a difficult deal, but I will try to get videos out there, let people know where I'm at, and hopefully we can connect.
Good.
Thanks so much.
All right, good luck. Safe travels.
Woo-wee. All right, Bash, you didn't miss anything. I haven't even started on my predictions. I think I got to Utah going 9-3, and then we started in with the phone calls. So this is what's going to happen here. We're revising our programming schedule right now. All right. I'm going to wrap it up here. Let everyone know that my predictions are going to be out in the next day. I've got to make something out of this mess, and I just got to collect it and be able to deliver it in one clean delivery. Also, he gave me a great idea in regards to just cutting a video, and maybe we'll do this via live stream, and people can jump on here who are going to be at the game and or somewhere in the area, and let me know where you're going to be, because I'm going to try to circulate and get to as many people as possible. So I would appreciate that. And also, man, I got to catch up on some shout outs, because you guys have been amazing. You guys have been amazing for a long, long time, some of you. And for you new subscribers, thank you so much for your commitment here recently. But for people like Deepa Rod and Cheryl, and I could go on and on, George, of course, you guys are amazing. And thank you so much for the support. And I need to recognize you guys as much as possible. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. This may be it for the night. Who do we have on the line?
Bash.
Hey, Bash, how are you?
Pretty good. A rough night of conditioning and stuff like that.
Okay.
With my team, but hey, get better. You know what I missed tonight. You want to give me a quick? I'll rewatch this, but quick recap of what I missed.
Oh, you didn't miss anything, unless you want to hear a bunch of people arguing. I had quite the argument with a number of people. They were fun conversations, but you didn't miss. I'm going to retitle the video. You did not miss any predictions. I've been on here for pushing 5 hours now with all the live streams, and I've not gotten to my predictions. And so at this point, it's going to take a while to get through them. I'm just going to regroup. I'll cut a video tomorrow, or maybe do a live stream, but most likely cut a video and unleash my predictions. But I've just been taking calls and talking to all of you. So it's been a good time, but have not gotten to the predictions.
Yeah, I heard that this is probably going to be the last call.
I sure hope so. I'm about tapped out. It's been a long day. It started at 7:30 in the morning, and I went to bed about 4:30 in the morning. So I think
fine. I got a lot to catch up on before I go to sleep tonight.
That's right. If you want to check out, all the live streams were great, but in particular, I don't know what you're really locked in to in terms of Ohio State, Miami, and Florida State are 3 live streams tonight. But definitely catch the Miami live stream with Cam, and we brought on David Waters from Gators Breakdown, so we had a great discussion.
Ooh, interesting. All right. So just real quick to cap off a little bit of a story. So I went on Uncle Lou's channel for the first time. First time I went through a live stream, seen him stuff, and he's doing great stuff. Kind of ticked him off because I picked Florida to come out of the SEC East.
Okay.
And you know how big of a George guy he is, so he immediately was like, "Oh, are you a Florida fan? Only I'm seeing Florida fans out here messing with me." And so he got really ticked off about that. And I got a question for you, and this is going to be my only question because to get off here, and I've been curious about this. Do you give Florida a legitimate shot to win the SEC East? And this is kind of two-parter. And second, do you think that Dan Mullen is responsible for developing quarterbacks that went on to have successful college and pro careers, such as Nick Fitzgerald and Tim Tebow in college and Dak Prescott in the pros?
So I'll start with the second question first. Dan Mullen does not have a track record of producing NFL quarterbacks. Yes, Dak Prescott is one guy, but if Dan Mullen would be credited with developing him, and I'm not saying that he didn't, but he doesn't have a track record of doing so, or he would have 3 or 4 or 5 of those guys. So that's not happened. But in terms of developing these guys as collegiate quarterbacks, he makes the most out of them. And he tailors his offense and his play calling to what they do best. That's what he does better than anything. He called an offense for Felipe Franks that was much different than Tebow, and certainly Nick Fitzgerald, who was not the passer that Tebow was, nor Felipe Franks. So that's my answer right there, is he's great at developing college quarterbacks and getting the most out of them. But I don't think it's just about developing the quarterback. I think it's the complete offensive approach and the play calling too. In terms of does Florida have a good shot? So I go back to the Florida-Georgia game, and people look at the final score. Throw out the final score with 10 minutes left in the game. It was a 1-point Georgia or Florida lead. I forget who had the lead at the point. It was like 19-17 or something in that range. So it was a very competitive game until about 10 minutes left. So certainly Florida is capable. They've got more than a puncher's chance of winning the division. I don't necessarily like how, although, well, Georgia's got a tough draw from the West as well. They both have a tough draw from the West. Of course, Florida's got to deal with Auburn at home, and they've got to travel to LSU. Georgia's got Texas A&M, and they always play Auburn. So if you consider Texas A&M and LSU to be likely and like opponents, then they pretty much have the same draw in the conference. So I like that. I like to see two teams that neither one of them has a huge advantage in scheduling. But I don't personally think that Florida's quite ready, but I wouldn't be shocked. I think they have a 25% chance of winning that division.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to make this last statement and let you go. Yeah, I expected a lot of improvement from Felipe Franks. I saw the ceiling that he had, and a lot of people were doubting me when I was saying preseason a year ago that Felipe Franks is going to do a lot better. He's going to jump statistically as he did. I think he's going to improve on that even more this year, and he just keeps getting better and better, got better towards the end of the season. Talking about Florida in general, the problem I have is they have depth issues, but the talent that they have, specifically starting basically everywhere, and maybe some questions on the O-line, is very good and definitely capable of winning the SEC East. The winner of that game will win the SEC East, even if it's Florida, and the loser's probably going to have 2 losses in conference, which is why I don't see the winner having any more than 2 losses, and tiebreaker would go to the winner. So that's basically my theory on that. I'm picking Florida in that, and I'm sticking with it. So you have a good night. Get some shut-eye. Going to have as much as possible, at least get as much sleep as possible. You have a good night, Mark.
Thanks, Bash. I appreciate it. You take care. Okay, folks, I think we've done about all the damage we can possibly do. And yes, Josh, I will be traveling during that. Well, I'll be covering the post game. Am I going to cover the game? If you really want me to look things over, sure, I'll watch some extended highlights and we'll have a take on the Arizona-Hawaii game. I normally would be right here, and absolutely, I would be watching the next game right after the Miami-Florida game. I'm guessing this is MCD Sports 4. So I'm gonna take one more call here.
The call will start at the beep.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's McD Sports 4.
I knew it was you. What's up?
Yeah, I said I was going to call in. I missed most of the stream because I was watching TV. I was watching a show that came back on.
What?
That's been gone for like 3 years. I had to watch it.
That's quite all right. You missed 5 hours of live streams.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go back and watch the Miami one, only because the game is this week.
Yeah, it was a good talk.
Okay. But the reason why I'm calling you is actually to talk about the games in week 0, actually. So, I know you've probably been hit with a bunch of questions involving those 2 games. So I'll round it up, I guess.
Okay, what you got, sir?
Have you made your final prediction on that game yet?
No.
Okay. I have Florida winning 24-14. I think Florida overall is just a better team. Jalen Williams, in my opinion, he'll have some good moments, but he'll also have some pretty bad moments. I think he'll be wildly inconsistent. The Miami defense keeps them in it, but at the end, I just don't think it's enough. I think Florida goes in there. Felipe Franks goes ahead and makes a few plays in that game. And I think overall, I think the Florida defense, I do think it's overrated personally, but I think they still make some plays against the freshman quarterback. I think Florida gets the job done.
Okay. MCD Sports 4.
And then the other game,
Yeah.
the Arizona-Hawaii game, give me Arizona 48, Hawaii 40. I'm going to trust the Power 5 and Arizona and Kevin Sumlin and the crew to get the job done. But overall, Hawaii, it will not surprise me if Hawaii goes ahead and wins that game. I don't think Arizona covers. It should be a shootout. It should be a fun game. But at the end, I just don't trust the Hawaii defense. I mean, they were giving up points against, they were giving up like 30 plus against like Colorado State, who was terrible last year. And overall, I'm just really not so on that defense. I think the Arizona defense is bad too, but I think the Arizona defense steps up, makes 2 or 3 plays, and then that will probably be the difference in the game. But I think it goes back and forth. What do you think?
I think I love your analysis.
That sounds great.
We are done for the night, sir.
Okay, I don't know if you're doing any more live streams, but if not, have fun in Orlando with the game.
We'll be all over it and be watching, because I'm going to be pumping out as many videos and live streams as I can possibly do from there.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Night.
All right. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Thank you so much, everyone, for jumping online tonight, and thank you for the support. Okay, tomorrow, prediction video, either a video or live stream asking you to tell me where you're going to be, or where any collection of Miami and Florida fans are going to be for the game, so I can make the best use of my time, meet many of you. And I completely forgot my train of thought on anything else. But I appreciate you guys hanging with me for close to 5 hours. And we will see you very soon. Be checking out all of our coverage coming up this weekend from Orlando.